Namaste, welcome to this Ask Me Anything, number 14, volume 14. Before we get started, just to say that if you do have something that you want to put here for me to address, or a question or a challenge that you're having, just simply put a comment underneath this video. If you're new to this channel, welcome. Really glad to have you with us. And at the end of every month, beginning of the new month, I tend to try to take some time and answer everything that's been sent in as comments under this video. So in the beginning of April, I'll answer anything that's put underneath here, as many as I can get through. So let's get started with this. So the first one says, it's from from Sessions, who says, I think I'm only seeking because I think I need to. And yeah, we all think that we can find happiness from the outside in, or from some future moment, that joy and peace come from some future moment. And what we actually find then is that happiness, joy, peace, contentment come from the inside out. So the seeking from the outside in that we try to do, whether it's from our job, our family, our children, our friends, our social activities, whatever it is that we're doing, even our awakening itself, it can be an attempt to try to get something awakening to come to us instead of allowing it to come from the inside out. So once we really begin to see that, then it becomes clear that everything that we've been looking for is right here inside as the core of our being, and recognizing who we really are becomes the most important thing. So when that hits home, it becomes clear that I've been seeking out there because that's what I have been taught to do. That's what everybody does. And it doesn't occur to us that there could be something here, even because we think we know who we are. And we think we know in our thoughts, in our mind, who we really are, and that happiness, joy, permanent peace is not here already. But that's really from this misunderstood idea of what we actually are. So wonderful. Fishy D&B says, got to disappoint you, Helen. D&B stands for drum and bass, the music genre. Fishy is my artist name. Well, that's okay. I was kind of guessing at what D&B stood for, and getting it completely wrong. Reminiscing about my own childhood. What you've said there is way cooler anyway, I think, than what I said. Dandelion and burdock, for those Brits that remember that. So way cooler, not disappointed, actually much better. So Gabriel says, Helen, what is your perspective on the law of attraction? Lots of love to you too. I think it's a very useful thing for a lot of beings, the law of attraction. So this idea that if I cultivate, perpetuate some state inside, usually gratitude, appreciation, joy, the sense of already having something that I want, how I would feel when I have what I want, and then I can draw it to me. I've spent a lot of time trying to make this work for me when I believed I was a separate being. And it really just kind of, I watched so many beings getting it and really manifesting so many things that they've wanted for a very long time. And yet when I applied it, it just kind of made things a lot worse. It made my whole, everything just went downhill. It had the opposite effect. Even trying to feel awakened and then, I draw that to me. And I finally figured out that it works in duality, the law of attraction. After a lot of pain and suffering, I figured out it's in duality. Me here, it's in two-ness. Me here, I'm going to cultivate this state, and then I'm going to draw to me what I want. So in non-duality, in the truth, we are waking up to what we really are, already. And that brings peace, joy, clarity. And our outer experience tends to change anyway, then our problems begin to solve themselves. Not because we've changed something out there, we're drawn something to us, because that would be two things. Because out there is us. It's a mirror image. Everyone else and everything else I meet is me. So, of course, my outside world has to begin to change when I really get that I'm everywhere. I have to begin to affect other beings around me that aren't really other. And then things that I've wanted can begin to come to me. Christ said it very well. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and then righteousness, meaning the right perspective on who we are, peace and joy, and all else shall be added unto you. I may have got the exact words mixed up, but you get the idea. And this is what he meant. Everything we've been trying to get, peace, love, joy, abundance, whatever it is that we've wanted, we've been trying to get it in duality, and it hasn't worked. And of course, if you're not on a path to awakening, you wouldn't be listening to this anyway, but it works really, really well for a lot of beings, the law of attraction. It just will start to falter and stutter and stall out, maybe even have the opposite effect, because if you're on this pathway, because it's emphasizing that there's you and something else to draw to you, even if it's a subtle thing like peace or abundance, or I want more time, or I want the right being to come into my life, something like that. So it works fine for everyone, until probably you find yourself watching a video like this, right? So Lena says, Dear Helen, many heartfelt thanks to you for your wonderful teaching and answers. They're helpful and enlightened to me. Thank you. Below your quote that inspires me to ask you a question. So the quote of mine she's put is, whatever we believe about ourselves, the world and even the the world and even the self, capital S, must be reflected back to us in our body, mind, and emotions about and the worlds. And she says, Dear Helen, I do like what you said. All great sages are saying that. Please, can you help me see with my problem? I love having any types of conversations and like to listen to people's opinions. However, when someone will say a real nonsense, I stop enjoying because I become irritated, angry, or upset. I talk about real nonsense. People who don't believe in God or Christ are lost and not responsible. Animals exist, that we would eat them. Science is stupid, but I know what I'm talking about, etc. How does my reaction, irritation, or being upset relate to your quote above? What kind of my belief reflected back to me? How can I exist in the opinion which irritated me? I know that I need to let people express themselves. I know that everybody speaks from their experiences. Still, I can't help but be emotional. Please help. Okay, so wherever we're at in our own journey, and everyone is in Satsang, everyone is on the path to awakening. Most of us don't realize it, of course, for a very long time, just as we didn't realize it for a very long time. And if we come to recognize that everyone is our very own self, the infinite self, then in that we have to begin to honor and choose to understand, at least, not necessarily agree or accept or copy what that person thinks and feels. So if you know this is Buddha stood right in front of you telling you something that they really believe, and they really feel aligned with, do we really have the right to say that they're wrong? And this is where this feeling comes from. If I believe that people who don't see the world, the self, capital S, awakening as the most important thing, then I'm automatically somewhere inside making them wrong. And I'm going to keep encountering them until I really get this. Or any way of living. So we might choose to try to live our life in a compassionate way. We might choose to be interested in truth. We might choose to eat a particular diet and not eat some things, eat other things, live a certain way, talk a certain way, study a certain thing. And it's the exact same self that's choosing other options in another body. And this has gone throughout whole of history. I mean, wars have been fought over difference of opinion, who we believe is right and wrong. So do we really have the right to say who's right and who's wrong? And perhaps the best thing that we can do for anyone is to allow them their experience completely so that they can learn from it. And again, that doesn't mean we accept or agree and want to perpetuate any behavior or ways that they're acting. One human being's hurting another, of course, we don't want to emulate that. Of course, we value peace and compassion and love, but we can understand on some level that they are the self still, and why their body-mind vehicle might be acting that particular way, that they feel deeply unworthy, deeply unsafe, because they still believe themselves to be a separate being. And in that, they're trying to gain some measure of control of their life, security, power, whatever it is they think will bring them to feel better inside. Again, it's not condoning anything that anyone has done or will do, could do. It's making a choice that I don't really want to live that way, but I understand how a human being could end up in that place. The best thing I can do to change their mind is to be authentic to myself and allow them their authentic experience so they can learn that this way of being, this way of thinking, what they're holding on to in their beliefs and their opinions is not the healthiest choice. There are other options. So whenever we make anyone wrong inside our own self, we're going to feel wrong in here too, because we're disturbing our own self. We're actually saying that we're wrong as well, because that person out there is our very own self. So whether someone's completely lost in illusion or thinks non-duality is just stupid and pointless, whether they believe in God or are atheist, agnostic, whatever views they have, we can respect. That is the Buddha, that is Krishna showing up, it's Muhammad showing up as that particular person. And would we have the same opinion if we really knew? Would we call them wrong if we really knew who that was? That's the key to finding peace. It might be nonsense to you, nonsensical, but it's very sensible to them. And perhaps how they see our life would be nonsense. The things that we value would be nonsense. So just having to really dig deep with that, as I had to do as well, and allow everyone to have their own experience so that they can learn from it. If I keep making everyone I come across wrong, I'm going to feel terrible, and I'm going to fragment myself into me and other, in my imagination at least, because I can't actually do that. But I'm going to feel terribly divided inside, and that's what the feeling is. NB says, hi, Helen, do you know anything about spiritual beings? When we feel something, do we feel them? Thank you. So I'm guessing that you mean ones without a body, a human body. And it's hard to say. Sometimes you might be feeling them, absolutely. When you feel things, it would help if you could be maybe right back in and be more specific in your question. I've had many experiences of my life. I was quite lucky in that even when as a small child, I could see lots of things that other people couldn't see. I didn't want to see, perhaps. A lot of it scared me, but I eventually learned to embrace it and as part of me. So I've been lucky enough to be able to see and perceive subtle things, energies, beings, and they tend to be just like us. There are some that are highly evolved, and there are some that are not so evolved. Let's just leave it at that. Some that you want to step away from. But again, we're going to have that experience is also going to be a reflection of what we think about ourselves. So there are plenty of beings that don't have a physical body that are there to help us. And they're just kind of subtly there. And as your awakening deepens, you might find that you gain a deeper perspective of the subtle realms of manifestation, which is what we're talking about here. But if I haven't covered what you wanted to know, please do write back in. Christina, excuse me, says, and thank you once again for your time that you took to do the time codes, and really appreciate that. Helps a lot of beings, I'm sure, especially with this particular type of video that's going on YouTube, where people have sent stuff in and they may not have time to watch a whole hour or whatever this ends up being, and just would like the answer to their particular question. So I really appreciate it. You said, "Dear Helen, thanks for answering my question about thoughts. My question this time is about being authentic in difficult situations. I think of authentic as being truthful to yourself and to align thoughts with actions. Is that a good way of putting it? But how are you authentic in difficult situations? How to say no without rejecting the moment? E.g., when society or your unawakened family ask you to do untruthful things, such as harming your body with an experimental jab or wearing a mask that prohibits free flow of breathing. Or if the person you married years ago now wants to jab your kid or go on vacation, excuse me. It's not your writing, it's my dyslexia. Would you fight for your unawakened kids how to be the one when the world around you behaves as separate beings? Thanks so much, love you. P.S. You've talked so much about separate beings that when I watched Star Wars with my family some days ago, and there was a scene with the separatists, freedom fighters against the Republic, I had to smile. And then there are the Jedi and the dark side and the Force. We know the dark side, right? The dark side is our own habits that are leading us deeper into illusion. And the Jedi in us is that which is focused on the, not dark as in bad or evil, just dark as in it's not going to get us to where we want to go, further into illusion, further asleep. Jedi is that which is towards the light. Again, not good, just light. It's going to lead us to more freedom and peace. I know what you mean when you start to realize how obsessed you are with awakening, when you start to see it everywhere like that. And there's so many references in those movies, especially the original 3 Star Wars, to non-duality. It's, yeah. And I love you too. Thank you. So how to be authentic. It is being truthful to yourself. Absolutely. What you said here would be the key. How to be the one when the world around you behaves as separate beings. So when the world around you, I want to flip that on its head, when the world around you behaves as separate beings, your only option then is to be the one. So I'm not saying you speak out loud to your partner or your children or your unawakened family, as you said, and say, you are my very own self, because it probably freaked them out. But remembering inside that they are you, and that as we allow our experience to dictate what we think and feel about ourselves inside, I'm going to keep going around. So it's inside, as I take a stand, be authentic to myself, then I'm going to, truthful to myself, I'm going to experience a different experience with these very same beings. So there's a situation where you want one thing and this other being wants another thing. And it's win-lose or win-lose, isn't it? In duality, because there's 2 beings here. In actuality, in reality, there's a third option in which both of you experience some kind of win-win. And in reality, it's always win-win. What's good for you is good for them. What's good for them is good for you. We don't know what that looks like in any particular situation. So this is kind of what it means to me to be the one in any particular moment. It doesn't, how to be authentic in that situation, I don't know is my answer. So if I found myself in that situation or a similar, or any situation, I couldn't tell you in advance what my body and mind would do. What I could tell you is that those actions would be aligned with my own authenticity. My words and my actions would be aligned with authenticity. So being authentic to what we're actually experiencing. I feel real resistance to doing this or deciding this or saying this, that would be honored and felt, not ignored. A desire for a particular outcome would be honored completely and felt. Any negative emotion that came would be honored. And also I would honor and look at how that other being is thinking and feeling. The actions that come out of that will somehow be good for everyone involved. And so there is no predetermined way that an awakened being would be authentic in that particular moment or any particular moment. It's quite often very surprising what the body mind does from there, what actually comes out of our mouth or what actions happen. But they do feel deeply authentic and they have a power in them. And they begin to change, subtly influence everyone towards their highest good. Not coercing, just influencing if that tendency is already there in that being, which it is in everyone. We all want to be happy and safe and peaceful and abundant and feel free. So as you honor the desire, you can look at how things are in your experience. This is how it is in my experience. There seem to be these factors trying to control me and my family. And in honoring inside, if there's a desire for something different, honoring that, just really feeling that desire is going to change the outcome. We don't feel the desire in its fullness because we say, well, it doesn't matter. There's this other external power that's going to have their way, have their rule, whatever, whether that's our family, whether that's our spouse, whether that's our government, whatever it is, we still hold it as other, then we are at the effect of it. If we recognize we are those bodies and beings that are trying to pass these regulations, laws, all of that, we are everyone from the highest to the lowest expression of human behavior. It's all us, it's all you. As you kind of accept that deeper inside, some of those behaviors you like, would want to emulate, some you don't, and you would like to move away from. But just don't hold it as other, otherwise you lose the power of the infinite self and you're back to very limited power of thought forms as a separate being. Mind has a tiny amount of power. Infinitesimal, it's like one grain of sand on an infinite beach. The power of the tiny, tiny mind compared to the infinite self. So what does it mean to be authentic in any particular moment? I don't know. I can't tell you. And I hope from that you get this sense of, I'm discovering this as much as you. I don't know what this answer is going to be until I start speaking. And even now, I still don't know what the next sentence is going to be. Can you get a sense of there's no agenda, there's no plan, there's no schedule, and this is how I am with this situation and this situation. And some things might feel as strongly aligned when I see some actions, some other actions out in the world I might feel strongly not aligned with. What the body does in each particular situation is going to be very different. So hope it helps. Have a ponder and then write back in if you need some help with that. SK says, hi Helen, first thank you so much for your answers to just not my question, but all of our questions, and for your teachings. The awakening has been so long and painful, about 25 years. I remember that one. It was just awful. My own journey was, consciously at least, was about that. Because many lifetimes before that, probably. I've had many spiritual teachers along the way, and I'm grateful to each and every one. However, I'm not going to seek out anyone new. I'm done searching. If I can't awaken with you, then I accept this as is. It's as far as I go in this lifetime. But as I said before, something inside won't let me quit. That's the self, isn't it? That's the self, absolutely. So I'm giving an update on how things are going since my question last month. Just 2 days before you answered my question, I intuitively knew I needed to contemplate, am I powerless? So when you said to contemplate being powerless, it just affirmed it for me. There's the oneness right there, see? Although nothing has changed financially as of yet, I know it will take as long as it takes. I'm also contemplating shame, as you suggested, shame for being spiritual and still being in this financial situation. Good. I meditate every day and have committed to practice recognizing the spaciousness throughout my day to cultivate this new habit. As I was recognizing the space one day, something shifted and I was being, not doing. I could tell there was a difference. It's huge, isn't it? Very, very subtle, but also very profound. I could tell there was a difference. It was effortless. It was automatic, recognizing the space. It was awesome. It lasted for a little while, but then I went back to doing. Is this what happens until it becomes a habit? Also, could you clarify for me, as I'm recognizing the space, I can be aware of thoughts through the senses and still have my attention on the space, correct? And would that be the same with thinking? I find when I'm doing mundane activities, the habit is to put strong attention on thinking. One last thing. I'd like to share an experience I had recently. I told my sister my next vehicle I was considering was a Jeep. The very next day, as I was riding my bike, a Jeep passed me by very slowly, and the words, the license plate read, "Fly Sage." There's the oneness again, huh? I don't really consider myself a sage, but I do occasionally get spiritual messages on license plates for an encouragement when I really need it. I get them sometimes from the radio, you know, from trucks passing by, they'll have a sign on anywhere, right, when you're really open to it. With much love. Thank you so much for your love, kindness, and support. Thank you. So, so you had this experience, just committing to, and it doesn't have to be, you know, you reach the end of this shopping for a teacher and you find one that resonates, and then you set up camp and you say, and of course, always following your inner guidance. If any particular teaching, my own or anyone else's, doesn't resonate with you anymore, perhaps first check if that's resistance. And if you feel it's not resistance, then go with your guidance. But sometimes I found it was helpful to pick one particular teacher. Of course, we can listen to others and we have that free will, totally. But okay, I'm not going to keep shopping around because I realized that was a way that I was actually avoiding really deeply applying what any particular teacher said. So I really honor and respect what you've said there, that if I can't do it here and now, then it's not for me. It is absolutely for you in this lifetime. And you've had this breakthrough from that. And the contemplation, as you're saying, is starting to really shift. So you have this moment where there's just a clear seeing that I, the self, I'm effortlessly being. I'm not doing anything. The body's doing, the mind might be doing, a lot of doing. The body may be still or it may be very active, a long day, busy day full of stuff. Or it could be a body could be sat meditating or contemplating. But I am effortlessly here, not doing anything. I'm just watching. And you have those little glimpses, however long they last. And for me, they just became less, wow, oh my God, when it happened, more normal, more frequent, and stayed longer. And each time they came, there was this softening of the seeking that was left, the doing. I wasn't quite the same after the experience had finished. And something is refining in that each time. But of course, I got very frustrated because I could see that this was just going to keep happening and happening and happening as I carried on. And I really didn't want to wait till It was all effortless non-doing and no doingness left. I could see something refining, and it's like, well, how do I shortcut that process? I began to recognize that this that's here effortlessly non-doing, I began to really question not from the mind, curiosity. Is it really gone when this doingness cuts back in? So I have a taste of my real self, and then my old way of functioning comes back in and seems to eclipse it. Like the moon passing in front of the sun, or the sun passing in front of the moon. I can't currently remember which way around it goes. Yeah, anyway, the seeing of the true self like a cloud in front of the sun, let's say. You see, if I can do this, anyone can. Oh, yeah. So the cloud, the sun is obvious and radiant, and that's just bright and powerful and warm and beautiful and just the here, shining all the time. And then a cloud comes back in front and we seem to have lost it. So my egoic sense of self comes back in front and I seem to be watching this going on. But if you really look now, if you want to shortcut this process, when that experience happened, the reason you seemed to lose it, this is so important, the reason it was only an experience and not a permanent reality, is because our attention is trained to focus on one or the other modes of our being. So I'm either doing or not doing. I'm either the self or my separate self. And when the separate self pops back up and says, hey, let's get back to work here. We took 5 minutes off or whatever it was, had a coffee break, but now we really need to work towards stabilizing this beautiful seeing you've just had. We buy that usually, and we put all our attention on the egoic sense of self, and we get really, we're watching it so intently, this thing, that we feel that that's all that we can experience. And we forget that we're watching this sense of doingness come back up. And then later it disappears again, another glimpse comes back, goes, and this gets more and more frequent, backwards and forwards. As you can see, as you can recognize that the effortless you is still here, watching the ego pop up, disappear, pop back up again, created out of nothing, back into nothingness, created. Do you have to wait for these moments where there's just this openness to see that, or can you look on purpose? Are you really only able to perceive one mode of your being at the same time at once? And this is the either-orness of the mind. I'm either looking at this or this, but I'm looking at this ego from the infinite self in which it's appearing. Isn't the egoic sense of doing occurring in the body, which is occurring in the space? So can you just notice the doing and step back and notice that's happening in the spaciousness? You might take a little practice to kind of get this, but when you do, wow. Because then it doesn't matter when the ego's here or not, doing its thing or not, really trying hard or not. You're just watching as the spaciousness itself. Oh dear. Yeah. So let me know what happens. I'd be excited to hear that. It gets much faster then as well. So Susan Rentfro, sorry if I said that wrong, says, hi Helen, I have a question about fear. How can I transcend fear or move through fear when it arises in situations such as public speaking, having a difficult conversation, or sharing a part of me that people haven't seen, e.g. being playful? Thank you. Well, fear in any way, whichever way it's showing up, is being felt because there's a story that we're believing in that moment. So fear of public speaking, oh, believe me, been there, done that, had to really work through it. Fear of being authentic, fear of being joyful, fear of being, fear of dying, fear of living, fear of money, every which way. I'm sure you've experienced them all as well. But underneath, if we just for a moment, just take the fear itself and not what it's projecting itself onto. Because mine says, I'm scared of this thing. I'm scared of public speaking. I'm scared of dying. I'm scared of something. scared of being authentic. But if we just, okay, for a moment, maybe I'm not scared of anything, maybe I'm just scared. And then we come to look at the story underneath. What does the fear say? What does fear, if it had a mouth, if it was a person, what would it say to you? I'm going to just sit with this a moment and really, when I really asked my fear, the fear, what it wanted to say, it was this kind of very primordial kind of danger, a sense of danger, a real kind of fight or flight. I'm in danger. I'm not safe. Something like that. But I would suggest you do this yourself. Don't take my words for it. What does fear say? Big red panic button and it's hitting it, isn't it? Danger, danger, you know, something. I'm not safe. Because if I do this public speaking and I get it wrong, I'm going to be embarrassed and I might lose my friends. People might judge me and then I'll be alone. And then I'll be less safe because we're family animals, we're group animals, and we like to congregate in groups. If I lose my body, I'll die, you know, was the other belief. Driving on icy roads, I'm not safe, I'm going to die. Fear of not having enough money, I won't have enough money to survive. Fear of having money as well. So, you know, all these reasons why, always taking me back to I'm not safe. If I traced why this thing was not safe, always came back to why the fear was there, rather. I'm going to be ridiculed in my public speaking. Or if I show my playful side, I won't be able to maintain the face that I show to everyone, the persona that I put forward to everyone else, which is usually different for everyone. If I just be authentic and spontaneous and joyful, I won't be able to be this being that everyone wants me to be, or I think everyone wants me to be. And I might make a mistake. And I might see that I'm not good enough, and then they won't like me, and then I'll be alone. And there's a reason that one of the worst punishments that used to be inflicted on anyone was banishment. Worse than death sometimes, right? To be banished, never to be able to come back to the social group. So have a look at the story behind it and then ask if that's actually true. On the Core Teachings playlist on the YouTube channel here, there's a video on contemplation, the art of asking a question to move beyond the belief, gently asking the question. Is it actually true that you're not safe, that you're in danger? If you're a separate someone, absolutely. When the body's gone, you're gone. As the infinite self, not so much. So, this is From Ideology to Unity. I have ADHD and Asperger's and find myself resisting self-inquiry, questioning tremendously, excuse me. It seems like a hassle, a doing and forced. Yet every day I meditate regularly, habitually watch the emotional sensations in my body, feel a tingle on my crown as they slowly dissipate if I maintain focus, or ask myself what emotion and sensation in my body a thought derives from. Watch that emotional sensation within my body, and the same happens. So I do mindfulness and somatic work all the time and have certainly benefited from that. But I find myself highly resistant to doing, as you've put here, self-inquiry. Is this holding me back, and how is it to be resolved? Well, let me start by saying that I've never really met anyone that didn't have any resistance to self-inquiry. Myself, I thought it was a totally pointless exercise where I don't want to ask who I am. It's just using the mind, or so I thought, or what I am. And I dismissed self-inquiry for many, many years. Even when I saw the amazing tool that it actually was, I still had resistance. And it's very, very normal. The more direct and powerful a spiritual practice is, the more resistance we're going to have to it, because there is this energy within us that's trying to keep our worldview, our self-view the same, because it feels, our egoic sense of self feels, this is how I keep me safe, by keeping things the same, status quo, keeping things static. So any thing that we sense is going to be quite powerful will immediately go into resistance against automatically without even noticing. The fact that you're aware of this resistance means that you're coming out of it already. The fact that you'd even ask this kind of question shows that you don't want to be at the effect of this resistance anymore. So a powerful question for me was just to ask, and you're good at asking questions. You've said here, you watch where it comes from, watch where an emotion comes from. You're doing that anyway. So just watching this resistance. What is it? Where is it? So for me, there was just this kind of, I don't know the right word, maybe restlessness, dissatisfaction, discontentment. Sometimes a really outright feeling, I don't want to do this, a real strong, almost like an anger in a way, pushing I'm not interested. Sometimes I'd fall asleep when I sat down to do self-inquiry. Been watching TV 2 minutes before, I was fine. And okay, I'm going to do some self-inquiry now. Oh, gone, So sometimes the resistance is very overt, sometimes it's very subtle. Sometimes it's external. You sit down to do some self-inquiry or even want to look at why you're resisting it. The doorbell rings, your best friend comes around, they've just broken up with a partner or had an argument or something and they need you. And of course, 1,000 other ways we pick up our phone, we end up on Facebook without realizing or whatever. So just watching this resistance, gently asking, what is it? Why is it? Is it really affecting me? Am I really powerless over this? And just every now and again, just reminding yourself of those questions and then forget about the answers and go about your day. And then you find over time, a couple of days, that you suddenly start to feel differently about self-inquiry. And you might find you even have an advantage depending on the way that your Asperger's is manifesting. Some people have, and again, this is from my limited experience of working with people who have Asperger's and ADHD. Sometimes it makes it more challenging to focus. Sometimes I have this super vigilant focus, which has been an issue for them in the rest of their life. But when they apply it to this, it actually helps to really zero in. So I don't know about your particular situation, but I wouldn't necessarily take it as a disadvantage. It's what I'm trying to say to your spiritual practice. You're doing amazing already from what you've told me. So it was holding you back, but now it's not because you're aware of it. You're not at the effect of it anymore. And just gently being curious, what is this resistance? Why don't I want to do it? Don't even try to do self-inquiry yet. Just kind of, why am I so resistant to it? What's that about? I'm curious. I just want to see. Be really interested to see what comes out of that. If you want to write back in and let me know. Well, I know what's going to come out of it, but I'd love to hear of your success to break through with this. Okay, so Jacqueline says, hi, Helen, I have a question about the inability to be spontaneous and authentic, which comes with the feeling of being inadequate all the time. In a professional role, this does not happen so much, but in social environments, it's very strong. Would like your help to transcend this. Thank you so much. So I remember feeling this all the time. You said that this comes with the feeling of being inadequate. I'd like to flip that on its head and say, because you feel inadequate, because you're agreeing somewhere inside that you're not good enough, it's actually showing up as I can't be myself, because myself, which is really what being authentic is, and I'm going to be myself, whatever that self is in this moment. I'm going to be that. I'm going to honor it. But if there's a belief that who I am is not good enough, of course you won't want to be that, and you'll try to be someone else that you think is better than your original self. So I would question that with a real deep curiosity. Am I actually, what does inadequacy say to you? You're flawed, you're not good enough, you're less than perfect, you fell from grace, all of these lies that we've believed about ourselves, and then come to really live as our experience. Once you know that you came from this divine perfection and you are this divine perfection, and your mind and body are arising out of that from perfection, only perfection. And yes, there's things we'd like to work on with our body and mind, but let's not do that from the idea that we're flawed or inadequate. From perfection and ever greater unfolding perfection in time and space. Absolute perfection, ever greater unfoldment of already so perfection. So as you come to see who you really are, what you really are, that you never split away from in the first place. There was no fall from grace. Only in the mind, only in the imagination. Then of course you wouldn't mind being yourself, and it becomes very natural and spontaneous. So have a look at that and see if there's something in there for you, and where you go with that. Like, you know, have a ponder, and even if you just see that if you feel deeply inadequate, of course you can't be yourself then. If I'm not good enough and I show up to work not being good enough, I'll get fired. If I show up to my family not being good enough, I'll get rejected. I'll be alone, you know. So these are the deeply held views inside our separate sense of someone. So let me know how that goes. So next, aishaniny. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Hi Helen, thank you for your beautiful satsangs. When I listen to you, I often start to cry. When you say you are already divine, you are already good enough, there has never been anything wrong with you, then I cry. It feels like a mother talking to the child in me. These are beliefs that I have believed all my life. I've made many inquiries on this, but never found any truth in them. At the same time, it feels so great to be divine, like it's too good to be true. And I feel like I'm holding back my divinity without really knowing what I'm doing. You once mentioned something about there being a resistance within us to our true nature. Maybe that's what I'm feeling. Do you have any tips for inquiry on this? Much love. So let me just say, it was the exact same for me. Every time I would see, have a glimpse of what I really was, or I heard some teaching or a teacher say something about, as you said, the fact that we're already completely divine, and there has never been anything wrong with us. It was just it's the exact same thing, as kind of floods of tears. And there was this sense that I was holding back this unfolding, that there was this tsunami of loving expression that wanted to express itself as me. And how do I stop resisting that? It became the most important thing. As you said here, there's this resistance to being what we already are. So here's where it got very subtle for me, the way that the illusion was perpetuating. And I'd seen many times that I wasn't a separate being, that I was this love. And yet there was this still, this thought pervading that I need to allow it to flow, or I need to stop resisting, or there's something that I can do to get rid of the rest of my resistance, my egoic sense of self that's blocking, that is the cloud in front of the sun shining. How do I get rid of these clouds? From the idea, clouds of resistance, from this idea that there's something there. So I had to really look at this and come to recognize that if there's no separate being here, if what's showing up this here is the love, just as you are, the loving divine essence of our real nature, taking the shape of these thoughts that I have to do something, taking the shape of resistance, it's showing up as resistance, it's showing up as knowing, it's showing up as peace and fear and shame and joy, abundance, it's showing up as lack. They can take the shape of this idea of a doer, someone separate being too. and quite often does for quite a long time as human beings. So for me, asking this question, I don't know if it's going to be helpful for you. If it resonates, great. If it doesn't, see if there's your own question inside. Can I really hold this back? If there's no separate me, then am I actually holding this back? Or is this resistance a symptom, a sign, a reflection of my idea that I can hold this back? That somehow I have to do something to be ready, worthy, able to hold. I'd felt this tsunami of loving expression just kind of waiting in the wings, and there was a real sense that developed every time I had a glimpse that I have to do something to be ready for that, because when it finally comes, oh boy, am I going to be swept away, swept along, unable to cope, overwhelmed, all of the above and more. But if there is just this divine flow of love, then that's all there is. There's no one to resist it, no one to let it in, no separate being at least, to be in the way of that process at all. The clouds in front of the sun are completely imagined. There's just a clear blue sky and the radiant sun of the self, capital S. So am I really holding this back? Was perhaps one of the most important questions. And little by little, there was no kind of, my mind would like to imagine this epic dam bursting, this big dam that had been built holding back this tidal force of water, and there'd be this explosion and the dam blows up and then this rushing. But it was just like a little hole in the dam, and then water started pouring through, and then another hole, and a whole chunk of it fell away, little by little. And at some point, I just looked back and realized there was just this flow of the self, of this love. And I can't tell you when that stopped being resisted by thoughts, an idea of someone. I really can't tell you. I just know that it fell away. So here's where the illusion gets very subtle, that there's something you can do to let this in or to stop resisting it. What if there's just this divine flow of love showing up as resistance? Resistance is made of love. It's just a lower frequency, slowed down, condensed down, so it feels more icky in the body, but still it's made of the same essence. So you're right on track, and this is just the last tiny little bit of the illusion there, isn't it? So again, if you need help with that, just have a ponder of what's been said. What it really means is giving up this idea of doing, even here. That right now, this divine essence of love is flowing as you, showing up as you as much as it's able to. And the next moment, it'll be even more when you see like this. So every day for me, it is a greater expression of what I already am, flowing out as my life, my words, my actions. And that's never going to stop. It's always going to be more potential to express it each and every day. And that's what's happening to you right now, even. These moments where you cry and cry and cry, these are little holes in the dam. And what's going to take out the supports from the dam is this question, am I really even holding it back? You are so infinitely powerful. You are the one being. You're the cosmic being. And you're so powerful in that infinite power that if you believe this idea that there's something holding it back, you'll experience that. Very real, continuous, 24/7 illusion. That's how powerful you are. Marianne says, this question and answer session just gets better every time. Appreciate your suggestions. So many questions for contemplation. Thank you. Glad it's really helpful. It's always kind of fun to see what's been sent in. Diane says, thank you, dear Helen, for sharing your wisdom and light with us. It's super inspiring to hear the stories of what you've been through, how you grew through it, and to see where you are now. We all learn from each other. Thank you for sharing yourself. Thank you for that, Diane. Sorry. I think that was in response to my sharing about the person from my past in the last video. I was sharing a bit about, because someone was asking about living with a very narcissistic person, and quite controlling, emotionally aggressive person. And I wanted to share my own experience there, because I've encountered, and what stopped me in my own awakening was, and encountered it in many beings, this idea that awakened beings somehow didn't have to go through that, or that because we're going through something like that, that we're not doing anything right in terms of awakening, that we're going wrong somewhere. But it's actually experiences like that that are grist for the mill, isn't it? The real desire to recognize our own self is the most important thing, and those experiences along the way for everyone are lighting that fire of the desire, fueling the devotion to truth. And I mean, I could give you countless other experiences of stuff that did that for me, but I just want to somehow, if I can, dispel this idea that we might be holding on to, that if I'm having that kind of experience, having some really bad experience in a relationship, or in my family, or in my career, wherever it's happening in our life, that I'm doing something wrong. Those are the same, how they actually play out in our lives are different, but the same experiences we go through, something we really don't like or want, something that has a huge impact on us. And from that emerges the power of the infinite self is waking up. It's been asleep inside, this power, this conviction, this courage, whatever it takes, attitude. It only came from going through those particular things. I'm really glad that's helpful. Okay, so last but not least is kbadivian. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I have immense appreciation for you and your generous contribution to our well-being. I do feel better and better every time I hear your satsang and practice your med-ing kont techniques. I like that. Took me a while to read that. So I am learning to love and accept myself as I am, thanks to you. Oh, well, that's just wonderful. Thank you. So for anyone that doesn't know, he or she is referring to the core teachings, which I'm kind of all about: meditation, self-inquiring, and contemplation. Whichever one of those is most easiest for us as our initial way into the self is fine. They all take it to the same place, the placeless place of our own already so-ness, our complete perfection, our innate divinity, which is speaking these words right now and hearing them, and sitting in this chair and sitting wherever you are watching this. Same. So, and that's just how it is, isn't it? As you feel some kind of resonance with any teacher or teaching, there's any particular way the message is put, there's just a softening each and every time, a greater curiosity, less devotion to assuming we know what's true, more devotion to actually experiencing what's true about us. So there's nothing more beautiful than when a human being comes to love and accept themselves. And that's always an unfolding. I found something this week in my own satsang, you know, that, oh yeah, I haven't really fully accepted that about myself. And there was an acceptance and a kind of tolerance, but it was kind of almost exciting that there was something I could accept deeper about myself. And that will always be going on. While the body mind's here, there'll be this evolution of it. But just loving where you are at, because it is the highest manifestation of your mind and body right now. Knowing that you came from this perfection. Even the word came suggests two. You are this perfection, and then arising out of this, formed out of this, is your mind, your body, your life, your relationships, your awakening, all of it. So really, really wonderful. And it's the greatest gift you can give yourself, to love and accept yourself as you already are. And it also allows what you would like to happen to begin to come into your life. And it also begins to have such a beneficial effect on everyone around you. You probably started to notice that, right? this very exciting thing. So wonderful. Thank you for sending that in. Thank you all for your brave sharing. I really, really appreciate it. And it's good, you know, when people write back in as well and give me some feedback on what happened when they tried to apply the successes and the challenges, trying to apply what's been said. Sometimes I can feel that you've taken what I've said and applied it and you've got the results. And it's nice to hear. And it's nice for everyone else to hear your successes as well. The more that we all hear that if you apply the same techniques and things that any awakened being applied, you'll get the same results. That it's not rocket science in that way. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just do what that being did to wake up and you'll get the same results if it's done consistently. And that's the key, isn't it? So thank you. And I look forward to seeing what you send in and looking at that at the beginning of April. Thank you. Namaste. And much love.